Hey family, before we dive into today's video, I'd really appreciate your support. Subscribing is one of the best ways to help us out. It's quick, free, and keeps the awesome content coming. Every listen, like, and share truly means a lot. Let's keep this channel growing. Thank you so much. My name Mike. 2 months ago, I find my wife has been cheating with my worthless brother for a while. It was 4 months back. When she finally shared the big news, she said she was going to have a baby. At first she told me that the baby belonged to both of us, but something didn't add up. Me brother had been coming around a low tand. It got me thinking so. I got curious and peeked into her phone to find out the truth. I talked to her about theme massages I discovered, and she finally admitted something shocking. She had been cheating on me with my own brother's chef. Cornered like she had no other choice but to confess it. It was a hard truth to face. My relationship with my family had been strained for years. When I turned 18, I left home, and we barely spoke since then. They always made me feel like an outsider, even among my own relatives, and my brother was a golden child. I thought that it was a little word to start the party, meant for me without me, but then I saw the cake and completely lost it. I finally confronted me parents and asked them why they hadn't thrown me a party for an actual real achievement instead, and they told them that after my acceptance letter they didn't want my brother to feel left out, so they threw him a party instead of getting angry or upset. He realized something heartbreaking. He needed to support not just myself, but also my brother. That realization shattered me. It was a turning point. I decided right then and there that I wouldn't return to them, and I stood by that decision. I financed my education by working hard and taking out a loan. Once a graduate, I shared a small apartment with a friend. It wasn't much, but it was me own space. I never spoke to my parents. So after I moved out for college, and neither did they try to get through home either, of course. Ages have passed since then, and last year my brother reached out to me online to ask if he wanted to reconnect with him and my parents, since they really seemed to miss him. A lot had happened since I left home. Like 2 years ago, I'd gotten married to my ex-wife. I was leading a very comfortable life, but I don't think I'd ever moved on from whatever had happened with my parents, so I did end up agreeing to meet them. It was awkward and felt uncomfortable initially, but they were making an effort to fix whatever they'd done to me in the past, so I felt obliged to make an effort for them. As well, made a decision to invite them into my new life, hoping for a fresh start. When things took a turn, my brother to my ex became me. First mistake they met, and something between them clicked. It led to an affair. She ended up getting pregnant at first. I was overjoyed by the news of her pregnancy. I naturally assumed that I was going to be a father. But then, as I mentioned before, my brother's visits increased significantly after the pregnancy revelation, and while initially it didn't bother me, it started getting word when he would touch my wife's pregnant stomach and speak into it. My ex told me that it wasn't that big of a deal, but I just couldn't shake off a sneaking suspicion that my brother had more to do with the baby than he was letting on. 6 months into the pregnancy, I decided to go through her phone while she was asleep, and that confirmed everything. That I was terrified. Off text between my ex and my brother proved that it was actually his baby ending date. Been together for a while now. Notably that my ex had no intention of ever letting me know that the baby wasn't even mine. She and my brother planned on telling me about the affair after the baby was born, and then she'd get a divorce from me and finally get with me brother, while they live off the fortune with the child support that I'll be paying. The following day, I mustered decorum to confront her about the text. Initially, she denied it, but then finally admitted the truth. That confession marked the abrupt end of my 2-year marriage. It was a painful realization. What followed was even harder to bear. My parents and of events sided with my brother and me ex. Their words about valuing both of us equally turned out to be empty. It felt like their promises were just hollow words. When my ex and my brother announced our divorce on social media on her decision to marry him, my entire family was fully supportive of their decision. Nobody cared that they'd ruined me mental health and broken my trust. Not just that my ex had been lying to me for 6 months and telling me that the baby was mine. It felt as though I had not just lost my wife, but also my kid, and it just hurt so much. My parents told me this was for the best. and Auntie Gain refused to even act like my brother had wronged me. They in fact told me that I should be happy that my ex-aunt brother had finally found happiness and hold, joined the celebrations once again, cut them out of my life, and that messed up my divorce as well. It was a staggering blow when my ex-wife left the marriage with a significant settlement and even took away my car, the support sheet. From my family who sided with her to her involvement with my brother was bewildering. Her lawyer in Czech concocted a narrative claiming that IA was controlling and toxic, alleging that Ty coerced her into leaving her job despite the fact that it was entirely her decision. To my shock and dismay, my family reinforced these false accusations. They justified cutting ties with me by painting me as a misogynist with a temper, a portrayal that was far from the truth. So the evidence was stacked against me, and I lost a lot of money in a divorce, but thankfully he got to keep the house. When the divorce was finalized, I was just glad that I washed on with this crap now and wouldn't thave to see any of these god-awful people ever again. Luckily, now it's in period for a divorce, where alive and my ex-wife didn't contest either. So I was able to wrap it all up as quickly as possible so that I could move on with my life. It was difficult to forget about all of this, but I drowned myself in work and pushed myself to be better so that I could move on from this nasty episode as fast as I could. That paid off since 2 weeks ago. I got a promotion at a position, better salarion, better company car, the works basically, and I couldn't have been happier about it. So I decided to treat myself to a solo dinner date at one of my favorite restaurants, but I made the mistake of posting about it online and with them. A day or two, my mother contacted and asked me to come visit them. Their sudden interest in reaching out after everything, especially considering their support for my ex-wife's false accusations, still me utterly perplexed. I tried to brush it off initially, ignoring Thokos for a few days, but then their relentless calls escalated into a surprise. She showed up uninvited at my workplace. She refused to leave and ended up in a heated argument with their receptionist. It was an incredibly embarrassing situation, and I felt trapped by her persistence, so I promised that I'd visit in a few days, which Washel I was finally able to convince her to leave a couple of days after that if I annually visited my family. They'd use set the settlement amount to move into a bigger house so they could accommodate a baby as well, who'd been born just a little over 3 weeks ago. I guess that filimony was also being used to pay Thebos. But truth be told, it didn't really affect me that much, since the alimony was a really small part of my salary at this point, and I could afford it. Me brother wasn't home, and my ex was asleep, so it was just my parents who spoke to him. I didn't try to make any small talking, simply waited for them to get to that point. So after around 5 minutes of silence, my father blurted out that me brother had been fired from his job, and the alimony and settlement just weren't cutting it anymore. They said that they'd seen the post about my promotion and were hoping that I could help them out since they were running low on money. Now me parents retired a long time ago. My brother was out of a job, and my ex obviously wasn't going back to work anytime soon. The alimony wasn't an auto pay. The bills for a family of 5, especially with a newborn in the house, and I knew that too. However, I was shocked that they'd even had the audacity to approach me for it. After everything that had happened, I was so shocked. I didn't even have anything to say for a good few minutes, but finally, I came to my senses and decided that I didn't need to entertain any of this. He simply got up and left without a word. When I reached the door and opened it, I found my brother standing outside. My parents were telling me to stay back and hear them out, and my brother looked a little alarmed to see me there. I still didn't say anything and proceeded to leave. It was raining pretty heavily, and it was a short walk to where I'd parked me car outside their lawn. So I got completely drenched, and I was ready. In a horrible mood now. This is where I might have been the ahal because my parents and brother came after me, and while I was looking for my keys in my pocket, they decided to ask me for help one last time, and this time it was my brother who was making the pleas. Always been smug and arrogant, a direct result of the way our parents treated us. So it was weird to see him asking me for help, and it must have taken a lot of trouble to convince them. So they were definitely being honest about the bad phase I got really upstand, kind of exploded. I told them to stop bothering me, and that if they needed that badly, they could ask strangers on the street for help. I felt like maybe someone who didn't know them might feel more sorry for their. He's always been smug and arrogant, a direct result of the way our parents treated us. So it was weird to see him asking me for help, and it must have taken a lot of trouble to convince them so. They were definitely being honest about the bad phase I got. Really upstand kind of exploded. I told them to stop bothering me, and that if they need dead me that badly, they could ask strangers on the street for help. I felt like maybe someone who didn't know that might feel more sorry for their situation than I did. After saying that, I got into my car and left them standing in the rain. I'm not going to lie, it was pretty satisfying to do that to my family, since they'd done nothing but mistreat me my whole life. It's been 2 days since that happened, and well, I'm not sure if I'm right anymore. My mother has been texting me non-stop, and I feel so guilty for not helping them out. No. I have a lot, and sending them a little money won't actually hurt me. Beautiful for everything that's happened. It just feels like I'm being used, quite frankly. So 8 for not helping my family out with money after they took my ex's side in the divorce updation, so I decided not to help them out. It was a pretty big deal for me, since I felt awfully guilty about how I was just to abandon them. It hit me that they'd been treating me that way for as long as I could remember. Even during divorce, they didn't hesitate to put him in a difficult spot, so I figured, wise hold, I hesitate to do the same to them. I warned my mother to stop bothering me, or else I'd have to bring my lawyers into the picture, and that wouldn't end well for them now. Then naturally, so my brother showed up to my house here a few days ago to talk to me. He told Method while he felt sorry for how I'd been treated my entire childhood, heckled him. Helped the fact that he just was inherently better than me, which is why he was also treated like that, and he also told me that I should stop being sewered with our parents for doing what any normal parent would have done in their place, and just help them out since they're in a tough spot. Instead of holding grudges like a child, I laughed in his face because of how absolutely dented he sounded, talking crap like that. I told him that instead of put me down and manipulate me into helping them out, he should probably about looking for a job and not wasting his time like this. That touched a nerve, I think, and he started yelling at me about how I was just jealous of the fact that not just our parents but even Mike's wife preferred him over me. I was re-extaliating by not giving my family any money. I didn't bother arguing, but instead I simply nodded along when he accused me of seeking revenge. I agreed that I was taking revenge, and there wasn't anything he could do to stop me. That really angered him, and threatened to come after me, insisting that he'd find a way to make me pay, and that I'd regret talking to him like that. Honestly, I'm not taking any of that seriously, and at least he can try to scary me all he wants, but it's just not going to work, because I knows not capable of doing anything at all to me. I am in bothered up to Tetwo, 3 days ago. My brother visited him and tried to convince me to help them, but he was unsuccessful. My parents have already tried in the past, and it didn't work out for them either. So this time my ex decided to call me up and speak to me. Was skeptical about answering, but then I decided to answer anyway, because if I didn't, then they'd probably visit again and waste some more of my time. So I spoke to her, and it was insane how entitled and cruel these people can. Besh began by speaking, kinly acknowledging that both she and her family were facing financial difficulties. Despite acknowledging that Ty had no obligation to help after all Ty had happened, she appealed to my sense of maturity. She tried to evoke sympathy by highlighting how my parents had financially supported me throughout my upbringing. She also mentioned her efforts in being a good wife like Yesher, except for the part where my parents didn't give a damn about me, and always preferred my brother Anja. Actually ended up cheating on me with the same brother I used to complain about. So yeah, that didn't work. And Alan, I told that while I felt awful about what was happening to them, I was already spending a lot of unnecessary money by paying her alimony, which she technically did even deserves since she's cheated on me, but managed to get it out of Mezes. My family had no qualms about leaning and making me the bad guy for their gain. She started sobbing on Cal and told me that I was being selfish and heartless, which was just ironic when I still refused to help. She told me that me brother was right, and that I left her with no choice but to get the law involved, and said that she was going to hire alimony now and drag me to court to humiliate Me once again honestly, I'd like to see them try the first time around. I was so and depressed I didn't even bother fighting back or trying to prevent him wrong. I just gave in and agreed to pay the alimony without even attempting to prove their claims as false. I never was toxic or controlling or any of those things that they claimed. So she had no reason to cheat on me, and so didn't deserve a single dollar out of the divorce. But whatever, I didn't care then, and just wanted to get the divorce over with, no matter the financial impact of it. This time, though, I'm ready to fight to make sure that I teach my family the lesson of a left time updated 3. In a shocking turn of events, my wife was true to her words for the first time and actually filed for a higher amount as alimony. I got a big job upgrade, but this time I decided I wouldn't just let things go quiet. Ellie reached out to our mutual friends and shared everything that had been going on. The things that had happened before. Most of our pals only knew we'd split it, had no clue about what really went down. When I told them, they were really surprised. I asked them if they'd back move if things got serious, and they said he's right away. I also told my lawyer that I wanted to discontinue the alimony arrangement altogether, since she didn't deserve it in the least. I spent the past few days gathering all the evidence I could find of my parents and brother being horrible people who never bothered to treat me like an equal, and now hounding me for money just because they know about my promotion. I've had enough, and I needed to get rid of these disgusting parasites once and for all, so I wasn't going to stop and think about their feelings at all. And managed to convince some of my cousins would watch me get treated like an outsider in my own home while growing up to speak on my behalf, and they were kindling out to do so as well, even though we were never particularly close or anything. My lawyer was pretty pleased with whatever we'd managed to gather, and told that this would be airtight and we might actually be able to stop paying alimony. It was already known that she cheated on me, but the reasons given by my ex painting me as the villain and me brother as the hero who rescued her were all lies. And even though I hadn't tried to fight back the last time, I was certainly going to set the record straight this time, and I did so to my family. Had literally nothing to say for themselves when I brought up several video testimonials that my friends and a couple of relatives had recorded in my favor to prove that everything that my family had said was a lie, and that he wasn't the kind of person that they'd made me out to be. I guess that they'd figured they'd be let off the hook this time, just as easily as the last time. Booty wasn't that emotionally fragile anymore, and honestly whatever they'd put him through had made me a lot stronger. So yesterday it was finalized that I won't have to pay my ex any alimony anymore in light of whatever new information had surfaced, and I was probably the happiest man on earth. When I realized that it was over, it was just so satisfying to see the smug look completely wiped off of my family's face, and my ex looked like she was going to start crying any second. No, but yeah, I couldn't care less about her crying anymore, and was just simply done with this whole thing. I thought that I'd go home and treat myself to some great takeout in the movie, but my family obviously absolutely had to do any and of everything in their power to stop me from experiencing happiness. I was only a few yards away from my house when he noticed my brother's car parked right outside my home, and I was as to why he'd be there. I still went in, and there was my family standing outside my door and blocking my way in. I was very taken aback and didn't even know what to say, but I decided to act like this didn't bother me and told them to get off my property if they didn't want me to call the police. That's when me dad spoke up and told me that I should be ashamed of myself for what I had done today. He went on to lecture me about how I had no sense of responsibility towards my family and had betrayed them, all by refusing to help them out when they needed it the most after he was done. I simply refused tones were or engage in any sort of conversation with him and stood to reasonably. I just didn't want to give them satisfaction of getting a rise out of me, because I'm guessing that's what goal was, to get me so emotional that eventually I'd give up and do something rash and stupid. But I'm not an idiot, and that desperate measures weren't going to help their case at all, which they should have realized. By then, my silence probably pissed them off even more. And even though my mom demanded that I treat me dad with respect and talk to him, Estelle refused to speak. I could see them getting agitated because they'd clearly hoped for a huge fight, but nothing of the sort was happening. After some railing, my brother finally snapped, and grabbed me by the collar. He then proceeded to try and hit me, but my dad managed to pull him back just in time while he yelled about how I was nothing but just a jealous loser who would never amount to anything. I mean, it was really funny coming from an unemployed guy still living with his parents and begging his brother for money to live on. But okay, I told them that they needed to leave or else I'd actually call the cops, and seeing how that broke, they should probably make a run for it within the next 5 minutes. Begrudgingly they went away, but not before one last-ditch attempt by my mother to shame me into coned up some money. It still didn't work, and eventually they left. It's been almost a day since that, and they haven't tried to contact me since, and I'm truly hoping that it stays this way now.